I would like to introduce Dr. Albert Ratner. He came to the Maui County Council Environmental, Agricultural, Cultural Preservation Committee on November 5th and made a presentation about his downdraft gasifier. It's a trash to energy solution. He's associate professor of mechanical engineering at the University of Iowa, and we're really happy to have him here today.
Thank you. Thank you. So I've got basically the same presentation that I gave the council, but whereas the council, we went through the whole presentation and they asked some questions afterwards, I encourage all of you to ask questions during the presentation. So if you have a question, just raise your hand, stop me and ask. So that way I can explain it to you, right? So there's a lot of little ins and outs, some things that might be technical. That might be obvious to me because I've been doing this for lots of years, that might not be obvious to you. So if something's not obvious, again, please just ask. So I'm happy to be out here. Like I said, I was invited by a few folks to come out and hopefully provide information for everybody on some things that we've been doing. We've been working on trash to energy in different forms for about 15 years. Gasification. Started out with looking at more treated seed corn, treated soybeans, which are considered hazardous toxic waste. And so there's a lot of them left over. And how do we actually make use of those?
We interrupt this program.
Thank you. And so we've moved, more recently we looked at doing other things, waste tires, creosote wood, and other things, and on to trash. And we've tested some trash. So I'll show you guys kind of all these different things. First, a little bit about who I am. Right around 50 scientific papers, peer-reviewed journals, and almost the same number of conferences. We have a paper that just came out actually on poultry gasification. Looking at basically for avian flu, right, and getting rid of avian flu chickens or turkeys using, so what you really do is you use wood or some other material, right, to fire the gasifiers and the heat to disinfect the birds, right. And this was brought on by an outbreak in Iowa where they had to kill 6 million birds, right, which is no joke. Right, so, and their solution, unfortunately, was to kill them and stick them in a pile and put some winter soap, which is, as everyone understands, the most hygienic method, right? When you have a horrible flu, right, avian flu virus, this is not really safe, I'm feeling. So, you know, that's the idea. I'm a fellow of the American Society of Mechanical Engineers, as elected back in the spring. Senior member of AAA and on the executive committee for the Combustion Institute. I was also just elected onto the steering committee for the ASME largest meeting in the country that we do. That's about 3,000 to 5,000 people. So I was elected on the steering committee for that like a week ago. So, University of Iowa, right? Most of you probably haven't been there, but yeah, I've been there. Awesome. So we're on the Iowa River, located in Iowa City, in the state of Iowa. That's a very exciting naming convention. You know, some of you might have seen our football team, and that's the old state capital, which is actually how the university came to be. Right? Initially, the state capital of Iowa was in Iowa City. 10 years afterwards, it moved to Des Moines, and they created the university. That's our building. So here's what I'm going to kind of walk you through a little bit is what can we do about trash, right? Then combustion approaches to eliminating trash, right? And there's good and bad, looking at everything else in life. Downdraft gasification, which is what we do and how it works, right? What it produces. I'll show you our system that we have, some of results, right? So you can see it. Of course, we are public, so if any of you want to come and visit and see this stuff in person, you are welcome. Right? And that goes for anybody online. You just have to let me know. Tell me when you want to come, and we'll happily see you here, right? So, we've shown it to a range of folks. We've had our congressman has been by. We've had parliamentarians from various countries actually come by. Folks from South America have been by and looked at it. Middle East, China have come. Last I heard that there's a possibility that Tulsi Gabbard might come by and actually see it. So hopefully she can make time while she's, touring Iowa, right? To come by and stop in and see the gasifier. So, but that's been discussed. So, taking advantage, of having her in Iowa, so maybe have her actually see the gasifier. So, what are the options, right? So this is always important. Well, burning, right? You can just throw trash on a metal grate, light it on fire and burn it, right? Landfilling, right? This has been done for 5,000 years. I know they've dug up in Egypt basically old landfills. Broken pottery, right? Fish bones, other things. Somebody in 5,000 years could be digging up the landfill here, right? And finding what people were doing and what they were eating. Recycling is really important, but there's a lot of stuff that's not really recyclable, right? There was a hope, I would say probably 10, 15, 20 years ago, that you could actually recycle everything and it'd be great. And people tried, and then they started shipping the recycling to China, and they said, oh, well, the Chinese are recycling it. And then the last couple of years, the truth has come out, right? Which is, no. Styrofoam is not recyclable, right? People can't recycle it. Some of the heavier plastics are not recyclable. There's plenty of stuff. Electronic waste has been really bad, right? It's been in the news that they just keep sort of landfilling, or they can move it country to country without actually doing anything, right? And so people have to be realistic, right? We don't live in a perfect world where things can just be easily recycled. So we have to recycle what we really can recycle, and we have to have real ways of dealing things that we can't recycle. Right? And it doesn't mean we don't do research to try to figure out how to recycle them, but we don't live in the future, right? We have to make decisions that affect us now, right? Your landfill closes in 2.5 years, right? You can't wait for a solution in 30 years, right? You need a solution now, right? And that's the real point to understand. Using less, obviously, is important. In fact, there was discussion that Pepsi, for example, is going to shift Dasani water bottles that they use in sensitive areas to all aluminum. They're going to eliminate plastic water bottles for water, for certain other things. If they can't easily recycle the plastic at whatever place, they'll start shipping aluminum. Because aluminum cans people can recycle.
Toxic too.
Well, but at least it's recycled. All right, so you don't necessarily fix 100% of the problem, but you fix part of the problem. Right? It's more expensive, but the cost difference is not that big, right? So at least they're trying to be cognizant of the problems and trying to do things. Energy generation. So this is the other problem. True in general, really true here, right? The electricity rates in Hawaii are really, really high, right? And everybody knows that. Currently, the power produced on this island is heavily diesel, right? I think I drove by the plant with large diesel tanks. When you buy diesel, right, Maui Electric doesn't get that money, right? Maui Electric buys that diesel from some BP or somebody else that's not here. That's pass-through. They're not employing, Hawaiians, they're not doing anything with that money, right? That money's gone, right? So that doesn't help folks here either, right? So you want to try to shift to a system where at least the money you spend is employing Hawaiians, right? On this island, ideally. If you're spending the money here, people here are getting jobs, right? So that's one of the things to think about. Obviously, you use fossil fuels, you put out a lot of CO2, right? global warming, people can argue, but in Hawaii it seems pretty obvious what it's been doing. In the Midwest, we've had the hottest summers for like 30 consecutive years. We've had droughts. We had several, I think we've had July with, like last year, July, no rain at all, the whole month. Yeah. So that's no joke. It's a serious problem. But the lakes are seeing really serious problems. So, solar panels, wind turbines. Again, people should be doing a lot of these things. You have to figure out where to site wind turbines correctly, so you don't screw up a lot of other things. I was already half on wind turbines. Half our power comes from wind turbines. And in Hawaii, you guys have a lot of wind. You know, so people need to stop arguing and start figuring out where to actually put them, right? There are good places to put them that are not going to be, you know, cause problems, that are not going to, you know, affect native sites and other things. You guys just need to work on it, right? This is a solvable problem. And solar fields as well, right? You can make good solar fields. But again, these are not solutions that are going to happen in a day or two, right? But in the 10-year, 20-year solution, that's where you're going to end up with a lot of the stuff. Okay?
Yeah, Kauai is almost completely solar now.
Yeah, because again, people spent the time, they put it in a small enough field. All right? But that's what needs to be done. The waste side is still going to be here. All right? So, what do? Right? Use less, reuse, recycle. And when we can't recycle, at least turn to energy so that we use less fossil fuels. Right? That's the real mix, right? So what can we do for that? So you have incineration, which Hawaii Power has 3 incinerators, I believe, in Hilo, right? Or no, on the Big Island, on Oahu, right? In Honolulu, there's 3 incinerators currently running. There's some other versions, plasma, bio oil, and then there's the gasification methods that I'll talk to you about. So incineration, I mean, this is seriously not new, right? There's over 100 incinerators on the mainland, right? There's obviously 3 in Honolulu. Sweden is completely now on incineration, right? They import trash into Sweden, and they sell their power out to Finland and other countries because of their incineration. Right? Positive, it can be done cleanly. Negative, it's expensive to do clean, right? It's really no joke. Right? I mean, it's really brutal. You know, they claim they recycle, you know, by incinerating. That's your definition of words. I find that a stretch in the words.
So define it's brutal. What does that mean?
So to recycle, to incinerate cleanly requires you to have a lot of pollution control equipment on the gas you produce. So you burn all the trash, right? The gas comes out. You then use the heat to do steam, right? Do a steam boil and generate electricity, which is great. The gas that's now cold is dirty. And so you start putting in things to clean it. So they put electric precipitators to get the particles out. Then they put a scrubber with carbon and limestone to try to react out the chemicals, right? And so you go through this process.
Larger process, right?
Yeah, to try to actually clean it all out. So that process is actually a lot more expensive than the actual incineration, right? So when we put in a biomass boiler, and it was for running wood chips, right? And wood chips are pretty clean, right? The boiler was 2.7 million, 2.65. The cleanup equipment was over 4 million. Wow. And that's for wood chips, right? Just because they produce, particles, right? And there's some smoky stuff, right, in wood chips, but relatively, right, that's pretty minor. We don't have the nasty chemicals you get off of burning trash, right?
Yeah.
And it's a lot more than half.
And what is the energy you guys produce off of that?
So that boiler is a 30 MMBTU boiler, right, which is about 15 megawatts. So we use that boiler produces steam. That's our secondary campus. So we have 4 boilers that do steam, and they do steam for basically hot water and steam supply for that campus, for the buildings, for heating, and for running the HVAC systems for pressure. Then there's also some chilled water systems, right? So it's a decent size. So our gasifier, I'll show you the pictures. We dump our gas into that boiler and it gets fired and burned, right? So, but unfortunately these days, because we ran our wood chips for a couple of years, natural gas has gotten so cheap on the mainland, so stupidly cheap, that people don't even want to bother running wood chips because it requires maintenance. Right? It's not even that you can give them the wood chips for free, right? You say, well, free is good, right? Free's, yeah. Just the maintenance cost is more than the cost of the natural gas. Because the natural gas is so ridiculously cheap these days. So we still run our stuff and we still contribute. And so they run less natural gas when we're running with any of our stuff, right? So I'll show you guys that. Plasma arc and bio oil. Plasma arc people use mainly for medical waste. It's really energy inefficient because you just blast the heebie-jeebies out of the material. And it's good for destroying viruses and things, but it's really energy intensive. So you don't want to do this for all of your trash. It's just, it's not energy wise. So it's really crazy. Bio oil, again, people use it as a replacement for crude oil. I don't know what to say to that, right? Like, you really want to do more crude oil, right? I think there's better uses, right? People have particular ideas, but I think we can do better. So the general gasification process, right, for what it looks like, mainly 4 steps that occur, right? There's some drying, right, with almost anything you put in, right? There's some moisture. Pyrolysis, which is low temperature breakdown of material, either typically into gas or liquid. There's actually combustion, which is when I have enough oxygen and air, right? The stuff actually burns. And then I have reduction, which is when I'm making charcoal, right? And whether I cook the charcoal all the way down till it's gone, right? And so you might see, as an example here, right, biomass goes in the top, right? It starts to cook, then I'm putting in air, this is where it's actually burning. And so that heat is obviously cooking a little bit of stuff here, and then I've got the charcoal zone down here, and then I come out the bottom and with the gas, right? So that's one of the methods. Right? So a couple of the different versions, updraft, which is pretty common, I blow the air from the bottom, and I typically throw in the fuel from the top, right? Then what happens obviously is it burns at the bottom, and then I've got charcoal that's sitting up above it that's cooking, right? And up above that is sort of the more raw material that's pyrolyzing on the drying part, which is up here. The problem with this is that since the gas is flowing upwards, all the junk that comes out all the junk that comes out here, right, is really dirty, right? That gas is really dirty. And then generally, even after you burn it, you still have to then clean up the gas. All right? And there are a couple of ways to do that, but that's a general thing that you then have to end up doing. The benefit of downdraft in general is, whether you put in air from the side or we actually put in air from the top, as I'll show you guys. You basically have this combustion zone, you cook down the material, but what you make is charcoal, biochar. And because that biochar is hot, it breaks down everything else that comes through it. And so the gas that you make is clean.
So charcoal's like a filter.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. Charcoal is a very good filter.
Yeah.
And hot charcoal is a really, really good filter. Right? The other benefit is really hot charcoal breaks chemically. It doesn't just filter. It actually chemically breaks everything down into hydrogen and CO and CO2. Really small things. So you don't get any of the large nasty chemical compounds, right? That's the benefit. Okay. So what do we get? We produce biochar, right? About 20% of the mass comes out as, so if we run, let's say seed corn, like we've done, or wood chips, about 20% of it comes out as biochar. Really clean, ready to go on the fields, right? That it actually helps agriculture. Right? You get CO, CO2, hydrogen. The gas we typically refer to as syngas, synthetic natural gas, right? Because it's a simple gas, right? It's a lot like natural gas. You can use it in internal combustion engines. You can use it in a turbine. It's clean enough. Most efficient thing is really just to put it into a boiler and fire it. And we've tested materials both in my lab and in the company that developed some of the basic ideas for this is in a small town called Tama, Iowa. And my students, back in 2004, started there helping them out, putting in temperature sensors and helping them collect data. And so they tested everything from creosoted wood to tires, plastics, a whole bunch of stuff. And then they've been third-party tested for emissions. So the requirement in Iowa is if you're small, if you're a large power plant, you test things yourself, right? You monitor, and then the DNR oversees you. If you're small, you call a testing company that's on the list of approved testers. The DNR gives you, and they come out, they stick a probe in the smokestack, and they measure, and they tell you if things are okay. Right? And so they have, and they've tested the emissions during all these things, and the emissions are always within limits. No cleanup, right? There's no cleaning equipment at all, right? You fire the boiler, out the smokestack. Yeah. So there's no scrubbers, there's nothing. It's completely clean. Right. So these are the trash pellets we tested. Right. So we can talk about them being really pure and clean, and they are pretty pure and clean. They were about 35% plastic, and then about a third paper, a third cardboard. But you guys can tell they're not. There's still little tin foil and random stuff, right? And this is life, right? They're not pure. And this is fine. Right? And you can see kind of how big they are. They're about half an inch across, right? And about an inch long little cylinders that come out of a pelletizer out of a mill, right? And just pressing them out. So you basically whisper chipper up the material into fine little bits, press it out, it forms these little pieces, and then you can just feed them into the gasifier. Right? That's how it works. We looked this up. So when I heard that Maui loves its diesel, right? And we looked up how much it actually does. So diesel for electricity generation produces 884 kilograms of CO2 per megawatt hour. That's what you guys are doing currently. Sorted MSW produces 209 kilograms of CO2 per megawatt hour in a downdraft gasification-based power cycle when we did the math. So you can choose to do what you want, but that's what you're currently doing, right? And this is from a long history, right? I know that it's not Maui Electric's doing it by any stretch. This is a community set of decisions that have been made over a lot of years, right? And so it has to be a community decision to go in a different direction. Right? And I think Maui Electric is happy to go in a different direction, but the community has to decide that it wants to do something else. Right? The other thing is obviously is if you take in all your trash, then you're not using your landfill. If you want to generate enough power, you might start mining your landfill. In which case, then you would eliminate your landfill, and you'd have that space free.
Have you talked to the Maui mayor?
How?
Have you talked to the mayor?
I haven't talked to the mayor, but I talked to the Maui Council.
Okay.
So
They'll give it to him.
Oh yeah, I have full faith they will. And that's the point to understand, right? Is that it doesn't happen overnight, but if you make the decision that it's important, then you get to the place because people remediate, brown sites all the time, right? I mean, this has been going on for 50 years, right? You have an environmentally polluted site, you don't give up, right? You say, hey, I don't like this, I want to fix it, and it might take a while, it might take 10 or 20 years, but you fix it, right? You don't say, oh, it's just too long to fix, right? So that's what I encourage all of you guys to do, is to think about, hey, we can address these problems. They are not addressable in a day, right? But if you're willing to work at it, right, they are addressable, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. They're perfectly addressable, right? So is this new technology? Because people, I know other companies have come in with gasifiers and have come in with other things and made claims. And on the mainland, this is a common issue. People will say, oh, they've got proprietary technology, it's top secret, and it fixes every problem you have, and, will brush your teeth for you. So the technology I'm working on is there new science? Well, no. The science has been around for 30 years at least, maybe 50, maybe longer, right? So it's not new, right? Again, people are selling you bill of goods if they tell you it's new. It's not new. Is there a secret process requiring confidentiality to see it? No, because I want to show you the blueprints. And it's been published, right? So, no, not even close, right? And it's been peer-reviewed, right, by multiple people, right, in the scientific community. Why wasn't it done decades ago? Well, this is the best example I have. Portable phones in 2006, yes. Cameras, yes. Day planners, yes. But turns out, when this thing came along, all the world changed. Right? And everybody bought one of these. Right? But it does the same thing the stuff on the last page did. But turns out doing it better matters, right? It's not any scientifically different. That's the same thing. It just doesn't matter. Right? So that's the real truth, is that, this has no new science in it at all. Zero. But it's popular and useful. Right? And all of you understand why it is, right? Because it works better, right? Yeah, it does the same things, but it just does them better. So, what is it, that's useful? Simple, low-cost design, right? It's a simple system. It means it's easier to understand, it's easier to fix, it's easier to maintain, easier to operate, right? So my system is operating with mainly graduate students. But that's not a very high bar in the sense of mechanically taking things apart, right? Have I had things fixed? One of the common questions is, okay, how about maintenance? Well, in 10 years, we had the lid replaced, that was $10,000. We had the lining, because it's got ceramic fire lining, right, for fireproofing. That cracked, the bottom portions, after a certain amount of heating and cooling cycles, it cracks, which is what happens in a regular boiler. And that material cracks in any system 60 to 80 cycles is often what happens. But it cost me all of $5,000 to have it replaced. So it's pretty cheap, right? So is there cost? Well, sure. But are they pretty reasonable costs? Yeah. Because the materials are standard, they're easy to get, and they're inexpensive. Like I said, we can burn the syngas for energy. The biochar, like I said, you can sequester or you can put it in soil or whatever. So there's the system. All right, that's a blueprint of it. All right, so fuel and air come at the top. All right, there's a fire. There's a fire in here. Basically, the material breaks down until I make charcoal, and then the charcoal is what provides the filtering, right? So the gases flow through, they come up, and they go out the outlet on the side. Right? The charcoal and the ash fall over this edge, because you can see there's like the central tube, and then there's this disc with a lip, and so the charcoal kind of like falls over the edge, and then it gets swept down into a chute and goes out to a bin. Right? And there's a couple of airlocks to keep air from coming in. But that's what happens to it. There's you can see these little arms kind of sweep it into a chute to drop it. But that's what's there. Right? So you want to know what's in the equipment? It's pictures. Right? So this is looking up the tube. This is looking down the tube. Right? So you can see there's a couple of titanium pieces because you've got to mix the material, right, to make sure that you don't whole burn through one side or whatever. You've got to keep it mixed. And you can see some of the holes in the top, right, where the material drops in, right, and where you have typically a propane torch to start it. Because you dump stuff in, you fire a propane torch for 15 minutes to half an hour, right? It's like starting a fire, right? It gets going. And the other thing typically is, for this sort of stuff, you don't start with dirty material, right? Because you need to make the charcoal. So you can start with some wood chips or some other clean material that you have. Doesn't take very much, right? But once you fire it and get it turned into charcoal, right, then you're ready to go. Then you can throw in the trash because the charcoal is then hot and doing the filtering, right? So that's the idea, right? It's sitting in my laboratory. This is in the power plant that we have on our campus. It's a little cut off. We have our computer. You can see the chair, computer, and some our micro GC for measuring the gas composition and stuff is over here. The stuff gets fed from the top, right? And this is the arm that feeds into the boiler that burns the gas. So it's not very complicated, right? So in terms of you guys can pretty much go home and build them yourselves. No, I mean, it's not. Yeah, but I mean, but it's important to understand, right? This is why it's not expensive, right? You guys can understand what's here. You understand what looks expensive and what doesn't look expensive, right? And this is why it's not expensive, right? You know, the most expensive thing is the control system, right? Getting that programmed and stuff. That was the most expensive part we had, right? The metal is not expensive. The ceramic liners and the titanium bits, right? You guys know about that.
How much does it cost to prepare the material?
So it depends on how you're doing it. So if we order the pellets and things, like we ordered from a company in Des Moines that pelletized for us. I think my student paid, I don't know, a couple $100, $500 to give us a massive bin of material that they made up because it's custom work, right? If you're actually doing this for real, like in a production sense, it's peanuts, right? Because you buy the equipment once and then it runs, right? The big issue is just, you know, and again, like a pelletizer is not horribly expensive. You need a hammer mill to break up the material, but it's all, well, two things. One is it's standard equipment, and two, it's well understood, right? So we were talking to a guy from Minnesota from a facility where they've been doing this sort of stuff, but then they made pellets, but then they incinerated them. But they had dirty MuRF for 30 years. Right? And they did it perfectly fine, right? I mean, they separated all the material, did it all, you know what I mean? And they were making money until natural gas prices tanked. They were making money. So they'd say, okay, they were fully sorting all of the trash, grinding, pelletizing, and burning it in a more expensive incinerator, right? And making money. And the only thing that killed them was the drop in natural gas prices. So if you just literally picked up that facility and dropped it on Maui, it would be cost effective. Yeah. Even that facility would be cost effective. You know, and electricity rates probably 30% lower than what you guys pay today. So it's not even close, right? So it's just because like I said, with the drop. So it's fully doable, right? And again, MuRFs exist. There's a lot of MuRFs that partly serve incinerators on the mainland. That technology is well trod, right? That is seriously not new, right? And again, I think people on Maui want to recycle, and they want to do those things. So I don't think that's a tall order to say, hey, you know what, we're going to sort all of our trash and sort out all the metals and the glass and all the other pieces, so that we're only burning and gasifying what we have to, right? And everything else we recycle, right? I don't think anybody's going to complain, right? Yeah, and the cost is perfectly reasonable. That's the other thing.
Oh, we.
Yeah. I mean, so how this cleans up. So we actually measured. This is with a probe. This is the benefit of having students. You make a student sit on top of a machine. You know, it's a poor student that has to stick a pipe, with a thermocouple down into the gasifier, which is what we did. And then this is what you measure when you do that, right? And so, this just shows you kind of where this is sitting, right? It's coming in from the top. And so, what you have is drying, right? Up here, you can see temperature. This is in Celsius, right? 400 degrees, and going up, right? Running between about 1,000 degrees, a little higher, for where the flame actually is, right? And that's 3 inches thick, where the flame basically is bouncing between the material. And then after that, I'm making charcoal, right? The material that's now sitting there is basically turning into charcoal, right? The stuff is vaporizing off because it's hot, but there's no more oxygen. And so that gas that's coming off is what I'm going to feed the boiler with, right? That's the same gas that I'm making. Okay. And so that's all made here. And the benefit is any of the nasty stuff that's made here, or even here, is still seeing all of this charcoal, right? It's still all charcoal bed. That's really hot, and that's what's breaking everything down. And that's why the gas that comes out, because people ask us, when people ask, are there any tars in that gas? And so we have a sampling system that we measure the gas composition. But what you do is you draw on the gas, and you run it through basically like an isopropyl filter first, because the alcohol will capture a lot of stuff, right? And then you start going through water filters, several isopropyl, then water, then a chilled bath to condense out the water, drop it as much as possible, and then a desiccant and a filter before you go into micro GC to measure the other gases.
So their question was, is there tars?
Yeah. And
what do you do with the tars?
Well,
of course, you're burning something, you're going to get tar.
So you could sample for the whole 8 hours, and the isopropyl, which is first,
Of course,
never goes brown.
Yeah. Wow.
Right? And if it never goes brown, there's no
So you're like barely changing a pot filter.
Yeah.
Like not even once a year.
Yeah, we never had to change them.
Wow.
Because they never got brown.
So that's clean.
Yeah.
Oh.
Right? So our best estimates are basically parts per billion. You're below parts per million, probably. Below 1 to 3 parts per million for sure. Which is really, really low. You can run, so for comparison, you can fire a gas turbine directly on gas that's that long without any issue. Because the charcoal breaks things down, right? I mean, the chemistry there works.
Burns even the tar.
Yeah, everything breaks. Yeah, everything breaks. And that's just the reality of life, right? So, yeah, no, it's like we like it. So the REM pellets, 30% plastic, 35 cardboard, 35% paper, random junk. Composition, 63% volatile, 7.5 fixed carbon, 28% ash. Energy value of 87.59, mainly because like the plastic is high in energy, right? Post gasification, ash, 52%, fixed carbon, which is the biochar, 47.8%, right? So this stuff, compared to, let's say, wood chips or corn, those are like 7% smash.
But you don't have as much corn chips as you have plastic.
Yeah.
Cardboard.
Sure. Yeah.
Because, so I do a bunch of beach cleanups.
Yeah.
And so a lot of my questions was, what do we do with the material after? Instead of compiling plastic, a bunch of stuff into one trash bag and throwing it at the dump, what could we do with it? So I see this as a good resource for me.
No, this is like I said, this is perfect for that because we just shred it up, pelletize it,
I'm
and throw it
removing
in.
the plastic. I didn't think that you were actually burning the plastic
Yeah.
either.
Yeah. And
That's
so,
cool.
yeah, so it has several other benefits.
Yeah.
The,
And rubber tires.
you can do
Right.
tires as well, right?
Yeah.
Which turns out in Maui is a big issue because you guys love your tires so much you leave them all over the road. I see them all over Maui.
Just in case no one blows, you sit right there at a time.
Yeah. Yeah, you know.
And you mentioned also pesticides and waste oil.
Yeah, so the other comment is pesticides and waste oil. So that I've heard again that's an issue here on Maui. So the traditional problem with burning things like waste oil is the waste oil is very viscous. It's very hard to burn without it charring and turning it into really bad stuff. Luckily, a friend of mine, University of Alabama, patented a specific sprayer for burning heavy liquids. Right? And it's patented, so you can look it up in Google in like 5 minutes. Right? By A.J. Agrawal, right? Is the person who patented it. He's a professor at University of Alabama. And he patented initially for doing glycerin, right? If you're doing biodiesel production, your byproduct is glycerin. So to burn the glycerin, which is also really sticky and heavy, right? He developed this air blast atomization sprayer so you can feed it in and it burns it cleanly. Yeah. So you can actually do waste oil. You can do any heavy liquids. Yeah. And then, yeah. People have been trying. Right? People have been doing some good research to make this doable.
In California, we do the oil for our hot water heaters.
Yeah. So you can again. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of ways to do it with that sort of burner, which is a clean burner for heavier oils. You can put them for heaters. You can do them for whatever. Right? It's an open. I mean, the whole point is it's designed to be able to spray it correctly so that you can burn it correctly. Right? Which means that you need to make really small droplets of it that the fire actually burns. So typically in combustion, our normal analysis is they have to be about 30 microns or less. If the droplets are 30 microns or smaller, they'll fully burn in a flame and they'll be clean. If they're bigger than 30 microns, they won't burn fully. And then you make tar and bad stuff. That's the rule of thumb we have. Right. So that's the key for that. So since you're burning a lot of stuff that's processed, the ash number is higher. People have asked me also about things like waste, like animal waste, dung. That stuff's really high. That stuff's typically 45, I've seen 48% ash after drying. Which means you have to dry it, which is doable. You can use the exhaust gas, which is hot, right, to run a dryer to dry the material. And then when you burn it, again, the problem is it's going to be very ash heavy. So you don't necessarily want to burn it by itself, right? If you can mix it with other materials, it's okay. But at such a high ash content, it's just physically hard, right? Because there's so much ash being produced. So again, like any system, you just have to understand what the rules are, right? This is a down draft, so I need to have pellets or solid pieces so the air can flow through. Right? That's required. Okay? And then obviously I need to have enough energy. Like material can be kind of wet, but it can't be too wet. Right? And if I want to put in things that are either wet or have low energy, I need to mix in rubber tires or something else that's higher energy. So there's enough energy for the stuff to burn and for the heat to be produced. Because I have to basically cook, right? You think about it this way: is I have to cook the material, right, so that I make charcoal. That's the idea. Right. So that's the whole point. Some of the reactions, that happens to why you get small things. If you have CO2 and carbon, you get more CO2, more COs. You can get hydrogen because it's a water gas shift reaction, and you can even make methane. The amount of methane is typically pretty small, which is also why there's less of everything higher, right? So when we measured it, our GC measures up to about C6, C7 sort of compounds, they're pretty small. But we didn't see any TARs, which above C10 they would have been tests anyway. So, pretty light. $20 on a project on something, right? That's pretty silly.
Well, I'm sure once you find out it doesn't work, the government's gonna be like half on it.
Yeah, but you know, again, a normal pilot project is perfectly doable, and then everybody will be able to see with your trash in your situation, you know, right, what's the actual performance.
Just put one in every
I'm
outlet.
sorry, I'm writing this down. Is it based on the idea that it would become an independent power producer sold to the utility?
Yes,
Power?
yes.
Or generated and direct to a separate facility?
This is, so, I mean, I think the idea is that you would have a facility that would generate electricity, and then that electricity would then be sold, I assume, to Maui under who owns what contractually. I think it's all to you guys, how you want to do it.
So just for the audience's understanding, maybe our regulatory structure here is different from Iowa because it would be the next step, like what happens now. So the council literally can take the idea, but obviously it's still the administration that has to want to do it, budget it, put it into a department. However, at the end of the day, Maui Electric or a utility, even if it's Kauai, would need to agree to purchase.
Yes.
Right.
So the RFP process that I was talking about earlier would be important to bid in.
Yeah.
Because out of that vetting system, you get the competitiveness of the best product or service, best idea. Then it goes to that 3-member commission I talked about. They decide if the cost is okay, it's gonna have a benefit, it's wherewithal, and then it comes back out. So it's a good time to look at different things because as the utilities move towards more renewable, you know, Kahului Power Plant is gonna retire. We've been announcing that for years now, so we've been making steps to retire it in 2024, I think. And then we have seen that we've already done the first phase of RFPs. So we had the 2 solar farms that came up, West Maui, South Side. We also have that big solar farm, 200,000 panels are coming to Central Maui. It starts next year. It's never been a secret, but I'm always amazed how many people are aware of it. And that went through all the vetting process as well. There's a solar farm coming up. So these are all what we call grid scale. And it could be a waste energy option as well. It just has to bid in. So that's why the RFP process is good because it allows for the market to drive all the options. So if you've got the next best idea and it's planned out and proposed and it goes to that, because just yesterday we announced that we got 75 bids that came in for 900 megawatts for across of our 4 islands. So that's pretty big. So it's going to retire the coal plant in Honolulu, right? Yay. It's going to help make up for generation difference at Kahului Power Plant, because that's the diesel plant. You know, another move towards that. So all those things are shifting. So these new ideas and proving it and are coming in at a really good time for Hawaii. It really is. So I appreciate all that kind of information because because our use is not going to go down. But I was laughing at your cell phone analogy because where do you get, how do you power up your cell phone? So, right. But so that's good. So that's where the next step is. It's got to move in that direction because that's how Hawaii's regulatory process is and the setup is. And so the RFPs have really boomed last year, and we're in phase 2. Lanai and Molokai are going to open up, I think, next year. That 200,000 panel utility scale farm is going to start 2022. That's the contract we have. They're going to generate, I think, enough power for 27,000 homes-ish. Don't quote me on that around there. But, and room for lots more, because we still have to keep marching towards 2045, the state mandate for energy.
Yeah, and that's what I would say is the big thing then is for people to push in that RFP process, because there's sort of let's say sort of obvious things that Maui Electric has to include in an RFP, right? So the reliability, all the things we could all guess. But things like the recycling, right, the trash sorting, all of those pieces, my understanding is that that's not Maui Electric's responsibility. That's on the county. So if you want the county to do that sort of stuff, then that's important for you guys to push on the county to say, hey, we think this is important, and we want that to be included in RFP. And then obviously, then the power generation piece has to be tied to Maui Electric's process, which is what I would say is actually pretty normal, and that's what happens in most places. But that's why you go through and do that. Say, hey, this is what we want. We want an RFP that reflects this, and let people compete, right? That's the best way to do things, right? Is let people compete and have an open system, right? You go, well, you want to have open RFPs that everybody sees, right? So you can see the best ideas. But you have to demand, like I said, if you want recycling, you have to demand that that's in the RFP, right? That's the key. So that's the thing that you guys have to think about too. Make sure that you put this stuff in and ask the county to put this stuff in so that people can bid on it and do it, right? Because that's how you get what you want in the end, is that you demand that the county puts it in, right? Because I know Maui Electric, I'm sure, is happy to respond, and I'm sure companies are happy to respond, but they only respond to what you guys demand the county do, right? That's how it works.